Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Hot Pot. We're at cycle 141, kind of a longer break than I'd expected, but had a lot of different stuff happening at the same time, and I kind of wanted to come back at a point where there was something interesting to talk about. So, yeah, let's jump into what has changed since then. I'm now at 6 dupes, and the reason that I'm able to do that is because both of my morb areas are fully up and producing. I could probably take on more than this, I think. I think I could probably go up to 7 or 8, but I'm not going to push that unless I really need to. And of course my food is holding pretty steady here. You might notice some cooling happening in here. So we might as well start talking about that cooling loop first, since that was the whole point of this. So we have a decent reserve of ethanol, but I burned all my lumber. So the ethanol that I have here is pretty much all I'm going to get until I can get more lumber circulating. But my cooling, or my cold water area, which you can see definitely has changed, we got a good amount of polluted water sitting at a pretty low temperature right now. So this is exactly what I wanted in this. It looks like this setup worked. It was a little slow. It did only work because I had a lot of excess lumber kind of sitting around throughout the game. So if I knew what I was getting myself into to start off with this, I probably would have started off by trying to plant as many of those trees as possible and leave them alone. So I could generate as much lumber as I could to get this thing kick-started, but it did work. It's probably honestly not as good as the polluted water idea, and that is running the aqua tuner inside the polluted water, but I mean, I've been scrapping for polluted water this whole time anyway, so maybe this is what had to happen. Kind of hard to tell because, again, this is the first time I've ran it, and this was the first result that I came up with, so yeah, science. Science clearly says if it works once, then it's going to work forever, right? One thing I was mentioning in the last video that I didn't catch was that I said that the ethanol, if it got up to a certain temperature, would start breaking my aqua tuner. And that's true. I mostly don't want to break this liquid pump because it breaks at 167. The aqua tuners actually get a little bit of a bonus, about a 90-degree bonus, with pretty much every type that is on there. So I should correct myself a little bit in saying that the aqua tuner could break if it wasn't submerged in a lot of liquid, which is why I started adding some here. I need a way to actually disperse the heat. But secondly, why I added these hydro sensors, just to make sure there's enough liquid in here before I allow this thermal aqua tuner to run. But secondly, I could potentially boil water if I got my hands on some gold. So if I happen to find that, which I honestly don't know what to expect, because again, this is what I see on the map, and that's it. So if I find gold, then great, but if I don't, then that doesn't really change anything. But yeah, so pretty interesting happenings there, I suppose. You might also notice pretty easily that the carbon dioxide has receded quite a bit, and I just have a little pocket sitting down here, only being destroyed if the CO2 down here gets hot enough, or if it's starting to run up further into my base than I would like. So this is all holding pretty steady. I was pretty happy with how this all came up. It's not pretty by any means, but it gets there. It gets the job done, so that's what we saw. And that's what we're getting. So pretty happy about that. Also did talk about we need a way to generate water, and the water that we're generating is from these plumbed bathrooms. So I am generating some. The way I have this set up is I have more idle warnings here, by the way. You can tell how much I've been micromanaging my dupes, because as soon as I start recording a video, they're like, oh, we're out of things to do. But yeah, so I've got a plumb bathroom up here, and the whole way this works is that I have 2 liquid reservoirs here. If either of them get too full, I won't allow any more water into the system, and it'll just bypass it and go down and get dumped into here. So yeah, that's how this is working, and we'll actually see the water getting generated here from the dupes using the bathroom. I'd say, I don't remember exactly what the ratio is, but it's somewhere near half, maybe a little bit less of this water is actually excess, so some should run off every once in a while, not necessarily on every single use, but that's the idea here, and that's really my only water source that I have. It's just the excess water that comes from my dupes using these plumb bathrooms, so pretty interesting stuff. We're definitely scrapping pretty hard to try to get a continued surplus of water, but just the fact that we have this is evidence enough that we are getting at least some. So we're doing okay. By the way, I should also correct myself on a previous part of the video from last time. which is that we talked about how we were going to start growing arbor trees in this chamber here. I started running it, and then I realized that the amount of polluted water is way higher than what I thought it was. I thought it was a lot less, and I thought we could sustain that, but these trees are really expensive, so I kind of just switched back into a more natural way of farming these things by thankfully retaining all these tiles here and kind of micromanaging the morbs and where the seeds are placed via sweeping and via ranching and stuff like that. So any natural tile area that I had left, I'm trying to maximize the use of that space by adding trees here so I can start generating some more lumber, because the lumber is both going to give me water and it's going to give me ethanol. So that's kind of the thing that's keeping this going. It was the whole reason I was able to keep this up in the first place. You might also notice something pretty straightforward, and that is that I finally have these reed fibers up. I did get a few more eggs from the printing pod, so I look how unenthused he is. I'm going to go ahead and kill these excess ones that have been shaved already because I don't have hydrogen to keep these up. I do actually want to save some of these, but they do need to lay eggs so I can keep this going. Yeah, I did get some reed fibers so I could make some of these suits and actually get out on the map a little bit. I just barely set this up, which is what triggered me to start this video. So yeah, this is looking pretty good, I think. Definitely hard to complain after we thought that we were going to maybe not have any cooling and maybe start dying, but the cooling is working here pretty well. But yeah, finally we're going to get out on the map, and I think my first objective is just to get out into space, because there is steel there, and once I have steel, that's definitely a foolproof way to make a more straightforward cooling loop with a aqua tuner and with a steam turbine. So once we get that, that'll solve all of our cooling problems for pretty much the rest of the game. So should be in pretty good shape if we're able to get that far. By the way, I need to hook up some automation here and only let this run if there's enough oxygen in excess. But yeah, so we're going to try to get up into space as soon as we can. I don't know if we're going to be able to get there easily or whatever's going to happen outside of here. I have no idea what kind of biomes surround me, so it'll be interesting to look at once we get that far. Go ahead and build this. Yeah, I think I only want to run this if this is above, like, say, 200, for example, because it's kind of a waste of energy, and I don't want all of the oxygen that I've been produced just to get pumped straight into here, so yeah, oxygen overlay is looking good, but I don't want to suck out too much for the time being. Yeah, the morb areas, by the way, are pretty much completed. Like I said, I was going to size them down. I was going to add more deodorizers in here just to prevent any germ buildup. You can see there's still a little bit of germs in here, but by the time it gets out to a point where my dupes usually are, it's totally fine. Same thing with over here. So yeah, it's looking okay. Not the greatest. I actually need to add all my deodorizers here, which I forgot to do. I should probably do that now. Watch me do something boring. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so got that, and like I did mention, the cool water area did get replaced with this liquid reservoir, so I'm just going through my notes of all the things that have changed. One last thing I'm going to talk about is this little cooling setup. So the cooling setup is pretty straightforward. I just have a pipe running out of this reservoir. I almost just called this a box of water, because I'm so bad at remembering these names. They kind of all just run together for me, but whatever. I've got this box of water that's holding polluted water. I've got it set for the parameters of how much it will accept versus when it starts asking for more, just so I don't overfill it too much. Sitting in a totally sealed off room here, no real heat exchange happening, or at least as little as possible. And then I have a thermosensor here to say that if the water that's sitting in this pipe is above 45, I'm going to actually send it down to my aqua tuner. So go down to my aqua tuner, come back, and get dumped back into this box of water. And everything else is going to bypass that. So if this is under 45 degrees Fahrenheit, it'll bypass this and it'll go to my other areas. So I have two areas right now, one of which is my Dreco area, which, by the way, I said was coming up over here, but this area was just way too hot, so I decided to move it a little bit closer. Plus all my food's right here. Might as well have it somewhere nearby. So yeah, I did put some of this into the Dreco chamber and some of this into my whole growing area. So the piping looks something like this. And the whole idea behind this is, and this is exactly what I do in my walkthrough videos, so this is pretty standard. Just a super low power solution for this. And that is to have sensors at each corner. And if any of the corners get too hot, for example, this one's sitting at like 68, these pipes are going to very slowly share their temperature with the air around them since I don't have a great material for this. The best I have is granite. And then once they share their temperature enough, the water in there will get warm, and then I'll flush it back out. So if any one of those sends a signal saying that the water's too hot in one of these corners, I'll send it to this buffer gate. I'll keep this on for 90 seconds to flush the entire line. So that's going to flush all of this ideally and replace it with brand new cold water. And the same thing goes for here. The buffer gate for this one is set to 40. Oh, I didn't even notice this was here. I'm so happy. I'm going to get plastic as well. That'll allow me to start doing some different things with ventilation or germ sensors if any of that stuff matters. But the ventilation especially is going to be pretty important if I want to start like over pressurizing this carbon dioxide area or something like that. So cool. I'll take that. That's not my favorite thing right now because I do want more reed fibers, but that's still totally fine. And I'm just trained to be very happy when I see one of these eggs anyway, so. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think I'm just going to keep digging up as far as I possibly can. One awkward battle is I really don't want my dupes to be bringing this sand back in here, so I may create a setup where I'm forcing my dupes to move sand that I mark for sweep and like put it into a pit where they can't reach. Just because I don't want them bringing 150-degree sand up into these areas to restock this. I'd rather make my own. So that's going to be something that's going to be kind of goofy. But by the next video, I think we have all of our challenges under control. I'm probably going to take at least one more dupe on. And then I'm going to, again, just keep an eye on my cooling. But everything is looking pretty stable. So, yeah, I think I'm just going to keep digging up. And as soon as anything interesting happens, I will definitely update you, but it feels like we've stabilized, and I hope that I'm not wrong about that. And I think a lot of this was just from the reads that we got throughout the game to realize that, like, oh, we need to really panic and start micromanaging our pips and arbor tree seeds, and we need to start optimizing for a couple of different things with this cooling setup or this heating, or sorry, carbon dioxide setup. So yeah, we're doing okay, I think so. So I'll be back with another video here really soon, which, like I've mentioned the last couple times, it should all be part of one big batch, one big playlist, so check out the next part if you're interested. Thanks for watching thus far. Drop any comments down in the comment section that you might have, and I'll respond to them. But yeah, I'll see you guys soon.